And opinions. I'm Roman.
Hey there, I'm Brooke.
I'm Demi. And on today's report, the Senate confirms Biden's pick for a Medicare and the Department of Justice. The NBA urges lawmakers to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And Jarrett Carter, founding editor of HBCU Digest, is here with our HBCU headlines.
Could former President Trump be indicted soon? We explore the latest information. Plus, changes are coming to the largest Confederate monument in our country. We'll break them down. And Moderna makes a big announcement. You're going to want to stick around to hear.
That's for sure. We have all of that and so much more. So you're ready. It is our voice and our truth. So let's talk about it.
Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison will reportedly be taking over the prosecution of former Brooklyn Center police officer Kim Potter. Potter shot and killed Daunte Wright during a traffic stop last month. And as CBS Minnesota reports, the case was previously being handled by the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. Potter has been charged with second-degree manslaughter and has since quit her job as a Minneapolis police officer. I want to talk a little bit about the office that initially had this case, because there's been some interesting developments. A man named Imran Ali, the Assistant Criminal Division Chief at the Washington County Attorney's Office, that was the prosecutor who was handling the case, a co-prosecutor handling the case, and he just resigned, saying vitriol and partisan politics have made it hard to pursue justice. So he didn't want anything to do with this.
Wow,
Very
he just threw his hands up after we all saw what happened. A lady on the force, been there for over 20 years, how she pulled a taser, how she put a gun thinking it was a taser. We saw what happened that day, right? So I don't know why you would want to back away from that, because they feel like you would want to help bring some type of justice to the situation.
Right. Well, you know, a lot of people online right now are talking about the fact that he led the successful prosecution of Derek Chauvin. So a lot of people online this just makes them feel more safe and secure. Me too. It makes me feel a little bit better knowing that he's on the job. So I'm looking forward to see how everything turns out.
Okay. All right. Well, the Senate voted on Tuesday to confirm President Biden's pick to head the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Chiquita LeShure, who will be the first black woman to hold the key health policy position. In a 55-44 vote, the upper chamber approved LeShure as the CMS administrator, where she will oversee the Biden administration's goals of expanding the Affordable Care Act. Her confirmation brings another Obama-era official into Biden's administration. LeShure served in the former president's Department of Health and Human Services in implementing the Affordable Care Act. Well, there's definitely some things that we know what's going on that haven't her. Once again, you mentioned yesterday she was the first, right? The first black woman to head this. You know, she's for the universal health coverage. So she understands that there's a Medicaid coverage gap. She understands that. Also, she will now have the power to reaffirm vital legal protections. So there's some things that she can do to make sure that we're all in good situations. And she made a note to say that she sees that blacks, Hispanics, and American Indians make up 30% of Medicaid beneficiaries, but are underrepresented in Medicare. So this is someone that's in that position that knows what's really going on in this country and can try and maybe even the playing field for us all.
Go ahead, Bert.
No, you go for it.
Well, you know, what I want to say about this was that the CMS, what they do is they collect, they analyze, they research, produce all the data to eliminate instances of fraud in the healthcare system. So I was reading about a physician. I was trying to find the story. Literally a physician in California, if I can find it here. It's in my notes here, but a physician in California was literally I feel like was accused of a $6 million fraud in California, and literally earlier this month. So there's a lot of fraud that goes on in the healthcare system. But more importantly, we talk a lot on this show about about how black women die at faster rates while giving birth and things of that nature. And so that's one thing that I'm really happy to see. Hopefully she can help us find a middle ground for us and our white constituents, when we're in the hospital. Also, I am a product of Medi-Cal here in California. And so I love my Medi-Cal insurance. And so I'm also happy that there's a black woman that's on the job that can speak for us and speak to us and speak our language and know what we need, us as the black community, what we need. So she's more than ready and prepared for the job. And so another one, I'm happy that she's here.
And, VP Kamala Harris talked a little bit about Kristen Clark saying she will continue her fight as we see a rise in voter suppression and hate crimes across the country. Something that I thought was interesting, we've talked about this before, the fact that there was a strong opposition against her nomination, against her confirmation. And her supporters have been saying, hey, look, she's incredibly qualified. Would an equally as qualified white man be getting this type of pushback, or would he simply be a complete shoo-in? On the positive side, I think it's been a week of Black history, Black women's history, because yesterday we had her historic confirmation, and I don't know if you all saw, but also today, Corinne Jean-Pierre made her debut as the at her briefing room debut, making herself the first Black woman to stand behind that podium at the White House in 30 years.
So happy.
Two huge moments, and I saw them. They kind of just tied in together. I was like, wow, there's so much good.
Yeah,
and I just thought I wanted to tag on because she was asked, what was it like being the first woman in 30, the first Black person in first Black woman, in 30 years, to stand there behind that podium. And she talked about that experience, but also said that this goes to show that she believes representation is very important to President Biden. And I think a lot of people would also say Kristen Clark's nomination is another example of that.
Yeah, as we talk about it.
While we're on the topic of Kristen Clark, the Senate on Tuesday voted to confirm Kristen Clark as the new head of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division in a tight 51-48 vote, with Senator Susan Collins as the only Republican to cross party lines and vote for her. Clark will be the first Black woman to lead the influential wing of the Justice Department and will serve as Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. The Civil Rights Division's tasks include investigating local law enforcement agencies and taking on state voting restrictions around the country. The confirmation was held on the one-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder by former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, who was convicted in April. Republicans opposed Clark's nomination, painting her as an anti-police and radical, while Democrats dismissed such arguments as smear tactics. We have been talking about this since the news initially broke on the internet. So one thing that I want to just clear up is that Kristen Clark, first and foremost, is the right woman for the job. She is the right woman for the job. Then we start talking about how she is the first Black woman for this position. I don't want a lot of headlines I read today on Twitter were like, Kristen Clark announced as the first Black woman. No, she is announced as the right person for this position. Then she happens to be the first Black woman, which it shouldn't have to be that way, right? But we're happy that it is. Also, I wanted to say also that she has a long civil rights record, which of course makes her more than qualified for this position, like I said. And so, as we know, last year was tragic, traumatizing. And for all of this to come around full circle, the 1 year passing of George Floyd, we deserve this win for the Black community. So we're happy to have her. # confirm Clark. It is in. Yes.
Yeah.
Because of her abilities and her skills and her knowledge is why she is there. And she's going to listen to everyone. That's what's so important. You have one that's going to give their ear to everyone that lives in those communities that sometimes just don't get a chance to say what they want to say and actually be heard. So it's very powerful to have her there for sure.
Yeah, and sorry, obviously I put in all my comments. Brooks, LeShure, Corinne, Kristen Clark. Sorry about that. I looped all of my comments together. I got ahead of myself. But
there's nothing wrong with that because they both make the history.
It's been a big week. Yeah. All right. A big question right now is, could former President Trump be indicted soon? The Washington Post is reporting the Manhattan District Attorney has convened a grand jury that is expected to weigh any criminal evidence against the former president, the Trump organization, and top executives of his company and decide whether to issue indictments. The DA's office has reportedly been investigating an array of potential financial misconduct, including criminal fraud. News of the grand jury is the latest sign of a quickening investigative pace for DA Cy Vance's probe, which, as the Post reports, is unfolding alongside an overlapping inquiry by the New York Attorney General Letitia James. Their offices are actually now coordinating efforts. And so what is important to note about this is especially a lot of legal experts say this signals that Vance believes he has a pretty strong case against somebody within that circle, that he's taking this step. Also, since former President Trump is no longer president, that means he no longer has immunity from any charges that may stem. I want to also just put in the response that Donald Trump has responded to this, calling it a politically motivated witch hunt.
Yes.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, well, adding on to that too, that the panel, they're going to sit for 3 days a week for 6 months. So this is really intense, and I really just feel like Donald Trump has done so many illegal acts. I mean, I've read so many stories that at some point it's time for him to have to face the music, because he's been able to, we were talking about Russia the other day and what he did with the Patriots, and just so many just illegal, just slick things that he's been able to slide his way out of, his taxes, the list goes on, that at some point he has to face the music. He's no longer president. Like you said, there is no more immunity. His gas has just run out, and now he needs to face the music and just, I don't know. He needs to go to jail, honestly.
When Trump was sitting in the Oval Office, like you said, he felt protective. He felt like he had that power. There are so many allegations and things that could come up against Trump right now. From Atlanta, prosecutors open a criminal investigation regarding the election. From New York, sometimes something will have to stick. I also feel like we're against the clock, because we know if nothing does stick, he's going to be trying to run back for office again in 2024. So that's something that we don't want. I don't know about speaking for myself. Some makes me feel different, but I know we don't want that to happen again. We don't want to go back to 2016 to 2020 with him in the office. We don't want to relive that. So definitely, I feel like something is going to stick. It's just a matter of time. All right. Well, the National Basketball Association's Social Justice Coalition on Monday urged lawmakers to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. In the statement, the coalition called for the passage of the bill that would prohibit racial profiling, chokehold, and no-knock warrants at the federal level. It would also get rid of qualified immunity for officers and create a national police misconduct registry to prevent officers with a history of misconduct from being rehired. NBA players including Carmelo Anthony, Karl Anthony Towns, Sterling Brown, Donovan Mitchell, and Avery Bradley, as well as NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, National Basketball Players Association Executive Director Michelle Roberts, and NBA Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum make up the coalition. Obama Justice Department alum James Cadigan was named the Executive Director of the NBA Social Justice Coalition last month. If you think about this, there was times where people were trying to shame, tell LeBron James, help him just dribble and not respect the NBA. We know what they did during 2020. We know what they did before they went to the bubble, how they were part of the Black Lives Matter. They want things to be right. Jimmy Butler, in 2020, he wanted no name on the back of his jersey because he was saying, if I wasn't playing basketball, then I'm just another black man in the street that could be a victim to this, right? And on top of that, Sterling Brown, who played in Milwaukee, he just got a settlement. So these are players that has family and friends that could be at jeopardy. So it's time that we get this right, and I'm hoping that them help to push it, gets it through.
Absolutely. I think the NBA is definitely attempting to do their part to be on the right side of history. We saw it with the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Social Justice Champion Award that they just created. On top of, the NBA has a 74.2% black. So they should be on the right side of history. And, you don't have to be black to want to see change. You don't have to be in politics to want to see reform. But you do have a heart, and you know what's right and what's wrong. And so what I also wanted to add is that it's really powerful that these athletes and former athletes and coaches are willing to use their platform, because that's what it's for. These we're everyday people here, right? These are celebrities that have access, that have power, that have platforms. And so it's really, really always amazing to see when they use that platform for good and step outside of their comfort zone, and they're not afraid of what their team owner is going to say or what their teammates are going to say. They're like, hey, I know what's right, what's wrong, and this is what I want my brand to stand behind. Always powerful. Always powerful.
I'm so sorry, Demi. I didn't mean to step in you there. We talked about Sterling Brown. We've talked before about Thabo Cephalosha, the settlement that he got, and how he was almost charged and was being pushed almost to take a plea. And he fought that. And also even today, and obviously this is on a smaller level, but I think it does go to show why some of these players, most of these players, are so passionate about what happens to all black Americans, not just their own problems. But, Kyrie Irving is headed back to Boston for the Brooklyn Nets Celtics series, right? And so last night, I believe it was last night after game 2, he gave an interview, and after the game presser, and he said, talking about his return to Boston, hopefully we can keep it strictly basketball. There's no belligerence or racism going on, subtle racism and people yelling, and because they're yelling things from the crowd. Even if it is, it's part of the nature of the game. We're just going to focus on what we control. So he's basically saying, hey, I hope there's no racism. You wouldn't believe the level of pushback that he's receiving just based on him saying what he's saying is his truth, is his experience, what he's speaking from. And, you know, you brought me to that when you said, you know, LeBron being told that he shouldn't be able to talk about these kind of things. They experience what they're fighting for on all different levels, no matter how much money they make.
That's true.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Exactly. Great point
and
there.
real quick, if you ever sit courtside, the things that people say to them while they're playing about their family, about them, and even sometimes what they may call a threat, yeah, like they're taking a lot.
Yeah.